I grew up in an atmosphere where there was this Pro Tour circuit, and there were these like really long running tournament series where you knew like if I can't make it to this one, I'm gonna make it to another one. And as much influence as I have on PPG, like there's gonna be infinite of these stops. We're planning a 3 right now behind the scenes. We've got a big announcement coming out on May 7th next week. We've got more details about Texas coming out on Monday. And yeah, to exactly your point, Texas is stop 1. We're looking at 2 other major hubs for the upcoming PPG summits. It's going to be a really exciting time.
Everybody, welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Today we have some delightful guests. One and the only, the voice of Disney Lorcana Challenges, and honestly, the man and the event organizer behind them. Welcome, Mr. George Machado and Steven. You didn't have your whole name on there, PPG Steven, but I believe it's Abbott, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, I got it there, but I was like, wait, I looked down, I'm like, I want to confirm, and then it was just PPG Steven. I'm like, wait a minute. We gotta get the whole name in there, okay? So Steven, how are you guys doing this morning?
Amazing. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Steve, you are a newcomer here. Not really, because we're OGs, but this is your first time hanging out with us on the channel. So let's get a quick introduction here. You are the PPG project manager. As we talk about what have you done recently for Disney Lorcana that we can kind of talk about.
Well, hopefully you all had a chance to talk to me at the DLCs. It was really important to me throughout the entire series that we took a lot of the feedback from players, and that was a lot of my role. I worked behind the scenes to execute, lead the staff, as well as talk to players, take in feedback, see what fit in. And I think, over the course of the series, one of the largest things that we heard back from the players was, wow, these events keep improving from time to time. And I like to think that was a lot of the conversations that I had with you also. Hopefully I had a chance to talk to you at the shows.
Yeah, you were always there, without a doubt. That's like the exact definition I would give that, is that I would walk into the events area and it's like, oh, yep, there's Steve hanging out. So, Mr. Machado, for you are, you're the first voice that we heard for Disney Lorcana Challenges. At the beginning of every player meeting, you were there. Before that, if we're being honest, PPG was there. So here we are. It's crazy to say this, nearly 2 years later from the first time that you've been on this channel kind of talking about Disney Lorcana. So it's been a journey, but how are you doing? What's been going on?
Great. Staying busy. As you know, Lorcana is only one of our clients, so we've been really putting on and deploying these experiences for convention organizers, other TCG publishers, and just, it's a thrill putting on these experiences because no matter what the game is, ultimately the goal is the same, right? Everybody having fun, everybody playing games, everybody engaging. These are all things that we really take a passion to. It's not really a business to us, even though obviously, we need to make sure that everybody on our staff, has things to do and has opportunities to grow. But it's really about putting on these events because it's just such a fun kind of strategic hobby that a lot of us end up enjoying. So, yeah, it's been busy, but it's been fun.
That's wonderful to hear. So speaking of it, right, as we're going to kind of catch some people up, there might be some new players, but you are George Machado, the owner of PPG Entertainment. This is a wonderful photo of you in between Ryan and Steve here. Just kind of talk to me about that year, of Disney Lorcana Challenges. Like, how did it come to be for PPG? And, just talk through that process a little bit similar to how Steve just said and how it grew and it kind of just got better and better. Every event. Talk to me how it started. What had to happen in order for PPG to be, the forefront of Disney Lorcana Challenges.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And honestly, it stemmed from our initiative and passion for the game. When Lorcana was announced, like we had all proxied out decks ready to go, waiting for the cards to get printed. We were going really big with our distributors, making sure that we made those conversations, opened up those, those lines to those that were going to be stocking the game, and making sure that we set it up for success. We took the initiative and kind of posted a huge series that took place at, a trading card game event. And we secured, instead of selling our product that was like highly sought after at the beginning, ballooning for like 2 or 3 times MSRP, we kind of instead chose to sit on that and give it to the community. and they kind of turned out in droves, really, because that was the largest assembly
Yeah.
of Illumineers
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
right? Unofficially, right? Because
Mhm.
nothing official had kind of like come out outside of the Gen Con events, which were all capped at like 64 or whatever. So it was really exciting to be able to be recognized for taking the initiative and showing our passion and executing, very, consistently and very positively, right? The community all had a great time. Top Cut was like the whole production was streamed. A lot of this event production sometimes gets overlooked because it's just like, you compare it to an LGS store tournament or just a tournament. It's really just a production, right? Because you have the show, you have the timelines, you have the story behind it. A talented individual from Puerto Rico flew from Puerto Rico to Miami to participate and won the whole thing. Like,
Shout out to Jose.
it's yeah, and he ended up being like a name in the DLC
Yeah.
series because of that as well. And yeah, it was just fantastic to see and be recognized. And that's honestly how a lot of our relationships with the publishers usually start, because we usually execute a very professional form of what they'd like to refine, and then they give us the support to refine that.
Mhm.
Right. And you kind of seen that with the DLC and the support that Ravensburger kind of gave there. And I love how you featured that photo of us at Vegas, because that's when it really became we ended up getting a much larger leash on a lot of things that we wanted to deploy at some of the initial DLCs, but weren't given that free reign yet. So I think once they saw that we can easily handle these DLCs, they started really evolving, and that's when a lot of the excitement kind of ramped up, and people were just itching for more. And unfortunately, we weren't able to open up those caps, not necessarily because we weren't able to, because we were able to actually double from there. But going back to that leash, right? At the end of the day, just making sure that we were operating within our client's vision. But ultimately, I think the entire season was a huge success, and we're really excited to bring those series to any client that really wants to put their game on the map. And I really think that Lorcana has a good momentum going into it, and hopefully that continues for years to come.
Yeah, I agree. What I think many people don't remember is because they weren't here for it. In all honesty, is that you kind of just said it, but within 2 weeks of the game being launched, we were streaming an event from Denver, which is crazy. And then, yeah, PPG Miami at the Miami TCG Con, it was over 200 players. It's playing for Chapter One product with a full production. It was kind of insane to really go through all that so early on and be so committed. And it really did pay off. When I heard, it wasn't really a shock to me, but when I heard that PPG was the tournament organizer for DLC Atlanta, I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. But let's talk about what in that first year, right? We had 6 DLCs and we did NACC. So pretty much almost a year ago now, or a few weeks away from the 1 year anniversary of DLC Atlanta. What did you find most successful about them?
Yeah, I'll take that one, George. There were so many things that we consider a success. From, like I said at the beginning, talking to players, finding out what areas they wanted improved, and then just realizing that players are actually appreciating this and feeling like we are improving. I know at one point there was a video that Ryan put out where he specifically says like he got to walk in from Atlanta to Vegas and just his mind melted from
Yeah.
how improved it was and just where we were. So honestly, that was an honor just to hear that. We did other things. We launched Pack Rush at one of the DLCs, which has a long-standing history of success since then. That's been extremely exciting. Just being able to improve the aesthetics of these events have also just been like incredibly wonderful. For me, it's always one of those powerful moments if we're able to put something into the show that when someone walks into the room, their jaw drops and they have to pull out their phone. And then we saw that happen at Nationals with our viewing area. Every single person that walked in the room was just like stunned at how pretty it was. There are photos. There you go. Exactly. And just standing there, even seeing it all set up, we were just floored with how pretty it was. And just so satisfied when players walked in and I saw every single person pull out their phone and take a photo. um, so,
Yeah, I remember at badge check-in, you said, "Yeah, when you get to the ballroom, you're gonna pull your phone out." I was like, "Okay, all right, like I believe you." And then, yeah, it's his first thing. I was like, "Oh, yeah, he was right. Yeah, touche, Steve."
Yeah, and that player satisfaction really. I mean, there are numbers I could throw out, but above all else, that truly is the most successful thing that came out of the DLCs. We made the community happy. We consistently made them happy, and that's really what we're most proud of.
That's pretty great. That's pretty great. It is wondering. You mentioned about the Pack Rush thing. Was that a PPG idea, Pack Rush?
So execution for that, yes, 100%. We took back to Ravensburger. We wanted something for the more casual players, those more social players, because we had the competitive structure. We knew what players that were hungry and for competition wanted, but we also needed something to satisfy the new players, the players who walked in because their boyfriend dragged them there, or their mom really wanted to play because Disney is so unique and it can do that,
Yeah.
and their child's just, I need something to do right now.
Mm.
And so we had something for the competitive players, but we needed something special for those players that weren't, if I signed up for a draft, am I going to lose in round one? I need a way to be able to split those crowds.
Mhm.
And so things like the competitive constructed events that George created fit that half of the room, and the pack rush is slotted in so nicely for the other half of the room.
Very fair. Very fair. Yeah, we as you guys talked about that evolution, I remember we started as just Saturday, Sunday events, and by the time we got to Vegas, I think technically in Toronto it started where there were side events on Friday. So, we worked into it being just a 2-day thing to all of a sudden now it is like it's a 3-day weekend. It's a true destination event for anyone that's like just wants to play Disney Lorcana for a weekend. So you definitely saw those improvements. Mr. Machado, you know, here we are now, a year removed. Is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, no. Just like how you mentioned, right? How these DLCs kind of like evolved, and we were given a little bit more slack, a little bit more freedom. This third day that you had just mentioned and referenced, that was something that was pitched from the start, right? And we were really anxious to, or really excited to really put on something of a pregame kind of festivity where players not only can get those, those anxious feelings out, but also kind of like refine and test and discover, right? There's a lot of discovery gets done when you arrive at the venue, right? When you're welcomed, when you're received. And we want to make sure that they understand the battlegrounds, right? And how to navigate and go and do these things and activate this prize wall, and so many of the beautiful things that we were able to kind of like add on once given permission. So there, when I look back at it, there's not much outside of like my control or our
Mhm.
control that we could have done differently. A lot of the things that you saw kind of unfold before your eyes, we did what we could with what we were given, right? We made lemonade from the lemons, right?
Mhm.
Without an instruction book, without a recipe book, without and it was honestly beautiful because they really had probably the best partner that they could probably have to do this because of our extensive experience putting this on for various different other clients, right?
Right.
um, but at the same time, it wasn't just a copy paste strategy because there was a lot of refinement and a lot of pivoting that certain procedures and our internal standard operating procedures had to kind of like adjust to the unique player base that is Disney Lorcana. So
Right.
there was a lot of excitement and kind of like just satisfaction from being able to do that. And honestly, if I had to say, if we knew that information way before, obviously a lot of things that were deployed maybe could have been deployed, but a lot of things from day one were deployed that a lot of games have never seen, right? Like the ADA zone, the water stations,
Mhm.
a lot of great like quality of life things that you don't typically see,
I
at your standard trading card game.
as a frequent flyer into the water can zone, yeah, for sure. I do appreciate it. uh, a quick a quick follow up to that. I ask the players this all the time, but as the organizer, what was it like to sit in a room that when Ryan Miller picked up the microphone or whoever it was that day after when you handed it off and they said, "Hey, how many players in this room? Is this your first trading card game?" Like, what is that reaction for you guys? Like, just seeing like that room light up, and some of those rooms were 50, 60%. It was, a hand was raised and said, "This is like, what was that? What was that like for you guys to know that that's the type of tournament that you're hosting for 2,000 plus people?"
It's crazy. I mean, the beautiful thing is that it wasn't our first time, right? Like One Piece brought a lot of new
Okay.
non TCG players to the market. Digimon, Dragon Ball, and these are all games that we spearheaded the launch into the TCG market from a very like different culture and background. Like these Japanese games with these Japanese followings, to deploy them in America, where it doesn't necessarily translate as easy as a Disney Lorcana
Okay.
or Disney license into its own kind of territory. Thankfully, we had the perfect amount of experience to be able to kind of conjure that and kind of handhold where hand holding needed to be done, but at the same time, also welcome these like very skilled, tenured Magic the Gathering grinders that you see
Hmm.
become prominent faces now in the DLC circuit, and be able to facilitate them into a game that is, taken seriously at a competitive level, right?
Very fair. Any small addition there, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, player behavior is something that you really have to understand when going into organizing these. Since the DLCs have launched, I've traveled literally globally in
Yeah.
order to understand player behavior. I was at DLC Melbourne, I was at Nationals for Paris,
Mhm.
and my goal there was just to observe the players to really understand how do they respond to the different ways that you can launch ODEs? How do they respond to the information that's been put out before the event?
Mhm.
What are they missing? What do they need?
Mhm.
And so when dealing with a whole player base, they, as you said, 60% have never played a card game before.
Yeah.
That you're going in blind. And luckily, to George's credit, he's worked with these with the similar player bases where they're just hype over the IP, but they've never played a card game before. So we got to go in with a lot of experience and knowledge about how to treat those players, and I think that reflected very well. And one of the things that we're proud of is that all of those players are then going to go into the card gaming industry, and we know they're going to demand and expect more because their
Yeah.
first experience was such a high bar to begin with.
Yeah. First impressions are everything.
And I want to add on to that just a little bit too, because we're kind of like hyper focusing here on like the tournament and like putting on a competition. And
Mhm.
really, it was almost about like a convention setting where you have additional activations and
Yeah.
dimensions that you typically don't see at these tournaments. That we had the luxury of having the experience of how to host these, like how do you engage the normal fan? How do you engage the normal non-player? Like
Yeah.
these signings, how do you create these
Yep.
areas, how do you manage the talent, how do you create their itinerary for the day, how do you make sure that they show up on time? Like a lot of these things that are just like kind of overlooked because a lot of people are just like hyper focusing onto the prizes and the competition. It's a lot more than that, right?
Yeah.
It's about putting on this entire production, and it's extremely robust, and being able to add that dimension as we got through the DLCs was something that, as soon as I saw in Atlanta Ryan just impromptu just having a huge line and signing things, I'm like, do we need to get him a booth or something?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know he was going to do this.
Yeah.
Let's facilitate that for you and let's refine it, right?
Funny.
And
Yeah.
we've done that before, but it was kind of like just something that popped out of nowhere that we were like, oh, we're doing this. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
got
Yeah.
it. Okay, we
I
got
mean,
you.
hey, we gotta learn on the fly for sure. But that's like, that's the 1% better, right? Like you're just like you saw it, and we're like, okay, next time that's not gonna be like that. We're gonna make sure we're prepared. And it is funny that you address those things, but it's true. Uh, as a competitive player, and this is a competitive channel, we are just in the minority, in all honesty, in this game. Like we care just as much as they care, but they care for all the different reasons that we do not. And it's just as important for a tournament to be successful to invite all those people. And I think that I think the Disney Lorcana challenges that you guys put on, they 100% did get better every time. In my opinion, a lot of the frustration that came from them were things that were not in your control, such as Melee as an example. Like there was a lot of frustrations in Atlanta about Melee. There was a lot of frustrations at NACC because of Melee. Like some of those things you just can't control, but we still, you walk through them, you got there, and we got on the other side. And that's like, to me, one of the more impressive things is that when I really go down and if I really had to analyze it, it's very difficult to find something that I just didn't like about them. Like my biggest pet peeve was the idea that we didn't have side events on Friday. Like that was my biggest thing in Atlanta. Was like we show up a day early, we can check in, but there's nothing to do, and it doesn't make sense. How do I get my badge? And then you're just like, okay, go home, see you tomorrow. Like so that was like one of my very first conversations, with both of you, I believe, either there or after the fact, was I can't believe there wasn't anything to do on Friday. And by the time we got to Toronto and got to Vegas, we were off to the races, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, no.
So, moving in a little bit, let's touch on some of the maybe the sourness of it a bit. You guys didn't finish the season. Disney Lorcana Worlds got announced unofficially and then officially confirmed a few days ago, and it's in Orlando, and it's a kind of a closed event, and to our understanding, PBG is not the ones hosting the tournament. How's that feeling come off that we went through 60 LCs and ACC and we're just here we are now?
Yeah, it's definitely it's awkward. It's frustrating a little bit because the frustration is mostly from our like the followers and the community, really, because I see the frustration and in turn I get frustrated, right? Honestly, jobs are jobs. We're more than busy, from here to Sunday. It's not really about like getting paid to do X, Y, and Z, or getting chosen to do X, Y, and Z. It's just seeing the entire project through. I'm not a very slot me in, I'll do 25% of the work. If the whole thing grades out as an A or A minus, I'm happy. I'm kind of just like, look, I'm going to see it from beginning to end. And even if it's a B or, which I won't let it be, whatever it is, I want to take full accountability for the whole season. So I still feel responsible to a point to make sure that goes smoothly, even though we have no involvement. And obviously, like not being able to open that up to the community that followed us for the entire tour, I feel like I have a hand in lying to the entire community, which is unfortunate because I had no real plans of doing anything with the World Championship until I was given, the contract to do so. So I know that there was a lot of things said before the series, and these were all things that we were all operating under the understanding that these things were going to be deployed and be handled by the appropriate parties. And honestly, I don't know. Like the entire company seems like it's going through a big shift.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of people there that we've worked with that no longer work there.
And they're just gone.
And a lot of new faces as well too. So I wish the best for the season to finish off on a really high note. I really hope that the production really really immerses the community and makes it feel like they're there. And it's just an unfortunate thing because the World Championship is not just about the players, really. It's about celebrating the game and the entire series, and people that have kind of like expected that to happen and set aside PTO to kind of execute on the proper weekend. And then the huge silence for like 4 months. I could go on, but it's I'm just frustrated because I take it as more of a job, and I'm a player at heart, and I'm trying to put myself in those shoes, and me hearing the comments and going through Facebook, just I want to say something and I can't, and it's just
I mean, it's like you wrote like 85% of a book.
Yeah, and somebody finishes the last chapter, and you have no control.
Yeah, you're just like, I have no idea how this is going to end, and it's tough.
It's
fair. It's very, very fair. One thing that I thought about, and this is kind of been my response to the general public, is that you guys did set a precedent for the top cuts being, by themselves and not interacting. So it's almost like we set that up for Worlds to exist that way. And maybe that's just kind of like the impression that you left, saying, hey, when we're playing for the highest stakes in the tournament, it's not about the spectators anymore. It's about the players. So that's kind of what it feels like to me, that if that's the impression that you guys left, that Albert left, that you were just saying, like, once we get to that point where we're playing for stakes and we're playing for the big wins, that it's important that there are no distractions for players. And that's kind of just the most positive thing that I can take for it. And I've been trying to instill that in other players to at least give them an understanding, like, hey, this just might be about them and it's not about us this year.
Yeah. I mean, that's valid. That's a valid point for sure. I mean, when putting on these shows, you do want to make sure that those top players that are playing for like prestige and huge prizes have focus on what they're playing on, right? But being able to put that experience is non-exclusive to also putting on an experience to the loved ones, the plus ones, and the people that just want to celebrate the game, even if it's putting it in a different hall, which was, our kind of strategy from the beginning, right? Let's put them in a completely different room. Let's make sure that they're not overhearing the announcements or overhearing this or, whatever it is. We even moved them to the show floor, I think, day 2 on day 3. I think we moved them to the main floor because it was only like 8 people or something like that.
For Continentals?
I believe so.
The top 16 was played in the room itself.
On the main floor, because we did want to give that type of showmanship, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure that the main event, that everybody that was grinding for that top slot, which is usually where we see the highest like nerves and anxiousness, right? Because like one mistake and you're not in top cut, right? Especially with that 2-game format, it's very finicky, right? So we wanted to make sure that that was kind of isolated. But at the same time, the show must go on for everybody else, right? So it was everybody getting their main event in, almost similar to a DLC main event. And then that top cut comes out, and now you have not only a spectacle, but also, your right privacy, because once you get to a certain point, you're behind the black curtain, right?
Yeah.
And there's no distractions really there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a very extreme form of what it is. I if I had to really just guess on it, I don't think that there was a venue secured. I don't think there's any space available.
Yeah.
The entire time we had conversations about Worlds, there was no venue. So I think there was a lot of lack of planning on unfortunately, and that's kind of our bread and butter, planning, right? Making sure that we have these venues secured in very nice locations, accessible, cheap, a good spread throughout the US. And honestly, when it came down to the
except for the East Coast, you hate us guys. It's fine.
Yeah. When it came down to the end of the season, when we didn't have control of some of the venues, a lot of things were, it just kind of shows how difficult the science of venue booking and logistics go. But then you have to couple it with the tournament management and then the event management and then the production and then, X, Y, and Z. It's, the events look like they're a very easy thing that anybody can kind of go on and put on. But honestly, the complexity is extremely high. So if you don't have control of that project from start to finish, it could very easily fall apart. And we've worked alongside like 2 or 3 or 4 different companies on projects. And at the end of the day, where does the bill stop when it comes to the responsibility of, certain partners to do X, Y, and Z? And that's why the DLCs kind of came out as cleanly as, as they did, because of the ultimate control that we had in making sure we saw through the beginning to the end, despite all the red tape that we had to dance around. Like you mentioned, those, that day one not existing and, that whatever else kind of like ended up, I want to say Seattle's where we had the most amount of slack, but, we could have easily produced a Seattle from the start.
Right.
If we were given that liberty.
Very fair. So I want to move on from DLCs because we're here for kind of a celebration, in my humble opinion. And I really want to talk about the Pro Play Game Summit and kind of what that is and what your direction for it and things like that. So I guess to start, like what inspired the creation of this? Why are we here now? We obviously we did a year of Disney Lorcana challenges and we did NACC. You did have a circuit before those things too. Yep. So what makes you think that, like, all right, it's time for us to get back out there and kind of just deliver on this new thing?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we ran independent series before, and before then we only had like 1 or 2 clients, so there was a lot more bandwidth for our team to go out and actually support these events. Sometimes the clients were not deploying enough events, and it led the community in kind of like this strange void where they're not refining their skills, they're not linking up with the community and having great times. And a lot of these guys save a lot of their time to just go out and hang out. It's not really about how well they do in the tournament. So um, we felt like this lull, like this significant lull of not having events, was a perfect opportunity to re-debut the tour now that our team has grown expansively. I think back then when we had the series, we had like 20 or 30 employees. Now we're up to 80 to 90 employees. Two different companies. We have project managers on each thing. Like, it's just, we've gotten to the point where we have a lot more clients, but then we also have a lot more bandwidth. And we wanted to kind of debut a tour that wasn't at the, gave you a little bit more of that leash that we were talking about before, where the DLCs kind of like had their missing parts because of the leash that was kind of given. And albeit they were great because they had a lot of publisher sponsorship. But when you're talking about series like this, we want to make sure that the activation is there, it fills a lull, and that people have the opportunity to play at high stakes without having to lean on their local game store, which sometimes they just don't have the capability of hosting X amount of players because real estate is limited. They don't have the bandwidth to rent out a convention center and stay open. They need to close their store, go to a convention center and do that.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that we brought that like high level stakes tournament to the players in anticipation to make sure that they get ready for DLCs or any other type of like major events down the slate that inevitably will come. And we saw this opportunity in three specific titles, one of which being Lorcana, to make sure that we were putting on something that was engaging, fun, high level, had high production value, and that you can watch from the comfort of your own home. So that's where the Pro Play Summit kind of came in. And honestly, there's nothing else out there on the market that kind of that's like this. Really, the closest thing that you can find is maybe an SCG Con, but those operate with a whole different focus. This one's going to be a lot more engaging, a lot more fun, and the titles that are all involved are all pretty fun, exciting new games for the most part.
Yeah, I think Star City Games is the perfect comparison. They are a traveling show. They do one, normal and average one show a month, and everyone else that's been successful for us in Disney Lorcana, a Southside Gaming, a CCS like Charles Collectible Show, like they're stationary. They don't, you have to go to them, which is great because they're destinations sometimes, and it's nice to have that excuse. But it's also nice that, say, the people of Fort Worth, the people of Dallas, of Austin, like they can easily just drive up and kind of now participate and compete in this. And like, speaking of it, as we move forward, can you walk us through the structure of this? Like, is this a planned one thing? Are we a one-off show here, or are we going to look forward and like continue this and hopefully give other opportunities to other areas?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's one of the things, and I'm glad that you mentioned SCG Con as well.
Mhm.
I grew up in an atmosphere where there was this Pro Tour circuit, and there were these like really long running tournament series where you knew like, if I can't make it to this one, I'm gonna make it to another one, and as much influence as I have on PPG, like there's gonna be infinite of these stops. We're planning a 3 right now behind the scenes. We've got a big announcement coming out on May 7th next week. We've got more details about Texas coming out on Monday. And yeah, to exactly your point, Texas is stop 1. We're looking at 2 other major hubs for the upcoming PBG summits. It's going to be a really exciting time.
I love it. I love to hear it because it is one of those. I think that the community has kept the competitive community alive for basically all of 2025. If you did not go to NACC, then you didn't play for stakes in this year for Disney Lorcana in a way, unless you went to the aforementioned SSGs or CCSs. Like, these are the biggest things. World Class Cards is another one. It's been spreading, and we've seen more and more of these like 3K, 5K, 10K aspects, and kind of like what George said. Like my store, we can only really put on a 2K. Like, we can't get more than 50 people in the building, so it's really not possible. So it's nice that in the area that there are these other things that we can travel to and look forward to. And I do think that planning is huge. Idea that it was April 20th or whatever, April 25th, whatever it was, that when we released the PPG Summit for Texas, that's a lot of time for people to plan. We didn't always get that much time, guys. So as a player, thank you. we like having time to
Yeah.
know when things are happening. It's very important.
And we're looking and truly the 2.5 month window that we have before Texas will truly be the shortest notice that we give to the players. We feel that this is a conversation between PPG and the community. We're really looking to support everyone, and we want to make sure that we're giving players the ability to play. And to that end, it is an open dialogue. Players are looking for more than just constructed. Will there be a sealed PPG Summit main event? Are we playing limited more often? Playing with those formats, playing without the leash. I'll use the word George used. That's something that we're really looking forward to, and that's something to get excited about.
Very fair. Uh, Talk about the prize support to me. If we look at here, we believe that the 5K is potentially different than the 15K, right? It says 5,000 in rewards versus the 15,000 in cash prizing. So, what type of rewards and prizing are we looking at for these events?
Yeah, so the 15K main event, bread and butter, it's just cash prizing, with some stretch goals. Look forward to our announcement on Monday.
Okay. Okay.
That has been a very successful response from the community, and like I said, we're here to support the community. So as much as you all have given us, we want to give back. So we are looking to expand that pricing out further. But stay tuned for Monday's announcement.
Sure. Sure.
And Friday's 5K in rewards. This is going to be chase cards awarded to the top 8. You're going to be playing for those really high end enchanteds. But this is a testament to varying what people want, right? People want cash, some people just want chase cards, and we're here to offer you both. It's a celebration of the game, no matter where that game falls for you. We want to speak to you as well, because it's not just the competitive players. We also want players to leave feeling satisfied, filling up their binders, and whatever Disney Lorcana means to you, whatever One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh means to you, we want to bring that to you.
Yeah, and it's kind of what I wanted to follow up here is like, what is the goals for the circuit? Like what are we talking about here? Are we talking about, is it just competitive structured? Are we hoping to kind of include the casual community as like DLCs we're inviting? Like, what is that goal for you guys for this circuit?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of a mix, right? Like you want to have the competitive players, you also want to have the casual players. That's why we're deploying a prize wall, making sure that those casual players can grind towards their favorite prize on the prize wall. Maybe they want to cross pollinate on the game. Maybe they really want to start getting into another game and they can get something that's not specifically, Lorcana related. But the main bread and butter of what we built our brand on, the initial tour on the series, is always something that's more just naturally competitively geared, making sure that those players know that there's utmost consistent professional execution, the same that you would see at a DLC, and just making sure that they have the best opportunity to kind of refine their skills so that when that official activation kind of comes along, that they're 100% prepared to succeed on that. And we've seen that like time and time again. Not only are players able to kind of like look at the data, refine the data, and then deploy it in their next event with success, but also just getting those reps in, like that in-person play. Nothing substitute to that. So not only are you getting that information, those stats, those deck lists that you would always see at the end of the DLC, all the deck, like all that stuff were like, it was very strategic of us to give those out immediately as the event finished its day one, at the point that the staff would stay past midnight to make sure that we had everything kind of publicly accessible, so that when they came the next day they knew exactly what they were playing against, and the community would have those that information just in case they were at they wanted to play in their Sunday locals with that top deck and really give it out for a spin. So yeah, ultimately it will be a mix, and this series has the kind of opportunity to kind of like evolve over time, similar to how the DLCs did. But this time it's more about that conversation that Stephen was talking about, right? Like that open dialogue and making sure that we know, what is this following kind of looking for, because it may be something that overlaps with the DLCs wants and needs versus those that ultimately end up attending the summit. So
Very fair. Very fair. We touched a little bit. We talked about the SCG cons and like the professional tour and things like that. Is there any like way that this circuit is going to lead into something? Is there some player leaderboards, some invitational? Like, is there something more that meets the eye that we maybe we can tease a little bit?
Yeah, I think that one of the foundational pieces of community is establishing community leaders. And
Mm.
Disney Lorcana certainly has their fair share from the first season of the DLCs, but that doesn't mean that just because, these superstars were crafted in the first year that we can't craft more superstars. There aren't new players coming in. And the goal of really any competitive circuit is to give players a stage to stand on at the end and say, I won this. Or, I was up there. And this is going to be a player's chance to stand in the spotlight. You will see the ranking systems. You will see that championship at the end of it. Those details are coming out for
Yeah.
sure. But part of it before announcing it is about getting it right.
Yeah.
To that end, we're looking for that chase prize. We're looking for that unique piece to the puzzle that makes the champion feel more than just they got their name in an article somewhere.
Mhm.
You're gonna walk away with something real in your hand.
Yeah, as someone that has been handed a trophy, there is no better feeling than whenever I need to look, I can just look up at my shelf and be like, yeah, like I won that. Like that's incredible. A lot of that, some of that is attributed to George, ironically, that not everyone might know, but we go back that far, unfortunately.
and and,
But
and I want to add a little bit to what Steven was saying. We
yeah.
wanted to also make sure that those local game stores had the opportunity to deploy their best talent onto these series, right? With things like round buys, participation
Oh,
prizes for free for everyone that participates in these qualifiers. We just
okay,
posted this information yesterday, so it is pretty hot off the press. But if
okay.
you follow any one of our socials, you should be able to find the application links. Applications close next week, and that will allow your store to kind of get in on the action to make sure that they're setting you up for success. And I mean, nothing screams awesome like free prizes, right? These kits are going to be specifically tailored to the store to be able to give out to all their participants, whether they win or lose.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. This is, I mean, very close to what the SCG invitationals were similar and like those store kits. I know I didn't go to many SCG cons when I was playing Magic, but I did go to a lot of these store qualifier tournaments. So it's nice to know that this is where we're going. I will definitely get that information out there and make sure it's shared from our channels as well as quickly as possible. But that's awesome because I think that it's important. It's funny, we think about all the time just leaderboards, right? Leaderboards are something in 2025 that if you're playing a digital client, that's everything. Your rank is everything. So having that information and it just adds another layer to the prestige of it, and I think that that's very cool. So honestly, huge shout out to you guys for taking that on, and I look forward to covering it. That's for sure. So how is the event experience like kind of being enhanced? Is there going to be streaming? Is there going to be coverage? Your vendors, what can we expect there? Like obviously the DLCs were huge. I think in Seattle there might have been 10 vendors, if I remember correctly. It was a large amount of them. It was also a very big room. So what kind of experience are we expecting as players as walking into these tournaments?
Oh yeah, I love how you mentioned streaming, because I think streaming is like one of the most like essential keys to any event, right? Like you need to be able to broadcast this to the world. You need to be able to broadcast this back home so that, your loved ones, your team, your, support group can all kind of watch and tune in. And these are things that, we made mandatory from day one. We actually deployed the stream this past weekend at Las Vegas, and it was just, as kind of like a test run. And it was great. Like the community feedback was astounding, and we got a lot of great ideas to kind of like continue to refine that experience. So streaming coverage, the vendors will be there. We'll make sure that there's a good mix of vendors. I know that it was, sometimes when you go into a game and it's too new, the
Yeah.
variety from what you see from vendor to vendor is very limited, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunately the kind of one of the cruxes with the Disney Lorcana card game. But because you'll have a few different card games there, and because we'll be in like set 7, I want to say, or 8,
Eight. Set
by the
8.
time this runs around, yeah, Reign of Jafar. You'll be able to play with fresh new cards. You'll have a much wider variety of cards to shop from ultimately, just because we've gotten to a more mature point in the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that, those are all things that are staples in the tour. Side events 100%. Like I mentioned before, there will be a prize wall, so that prize wall will give you a little bit wider of a menu than what players are usually used to. And that'll allow them to really get what they want, even if it is outside of their specific trading card game.
Yeah. Love it. Love to hear it. I think it's exciting. It really is. Are there, we kind of actually, I guess we've touched on this a little bit, but talking of that prize wall, do you guys what's the plan for exclusives? We very often, for me, like I have PAX Unplugged, and locally for PAX Unplugged, the pastimes, I believe it's just pastimes, they run that, and they have exclusive playmats with artists and things like that says pastimes and PAX Unplugged, blah blah blah. Like, do you guys expect to be doing stuff like that for the PPG summits here? Where if I go to Texas, there's going to be maybe an exclusive item in Texas that won't be in the next one. Is that kind of a plan for us to look forward to?
Of course. Of course. I mean, exclusives per event go hand in hand with just event promotion to begin with. So that's of course to be expected. Obviously we're not the publishers, so we're not going to be able to give you an official, here's your official promo that's exclusive
Sure.
to this event, of course. But that's not just what players are seeking,
Yeah.
and it is an open dialogue with the community. What do you prefer? Dan, from experience that I'm speaking with the community directly, and saying, hey, here's this really exciting prize that I have. What do you think of it? And
Yeah.
if the answer is it's not good enough, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
And so we are. It's a process of refinement, and all I can say is come look at our prize wall and see for yourself.
And that's a good opportunity too. If you're listening to this now and you want to hit a comment, let us know what type of stuff do you want to see on a prize wall. What is something inviting to you that says, what, if I'm going to go to one of these things, I would love to be able to win something like that. I think it's a perfect opportunity for that type of conversation. To me, this is pretty important. This next little subject I want to talk about, which is inclusivity. What is it like? Ironically, I actually, before I just recently did an interview on this, and before I did that, I reached out to Albert, and I was asking Albert, like, hey, what was your guys' plan for this? Because when I went to look for it in the rule book, I didn't find it. So how important is accessibility and inclusivity for you guys in these tournaments? Do you guys have that on the docket as a planning, for those things?
I mean, yeah, that's huge. It's always been huge since day one at the DLCs. You saw it in various different forms, and then it continued to get refined and some of those areas expanded. But I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about with the qualifiers, making sure that stores are included into this celebration and that they get to deploy, their top players and getting them that opportunity that they normally wouldn't have, right? We're talking about like fly your player out to Texas on us, fly your player out to a summit on us, right? Like celebrate with your community, give them all free stuff on us, right?
Love it.
Set them up with a 1-round buy, 2-round buy to make sure that you set them up for success. All these things include a lot of this accessibility and inclusivity that sometimes you won't get at store championships, because sometimes those stores are, doing funky things like limiting the cap or not giving out the prize support and stuff like that. And we are working with stores to make sure that, anyone who's interested and that they pass the qualification and application, that they have that opportunity to kind of put on something like this. On top of that, the location selection. I mean, we only deal with like the best venues, across this.
Yeah.
This Dallas event is actually in the same venue as DLC Texas. So there's not really like there's not a lot of friction as to like.
Yeah, this room held 2,000 players.
Exactly.
Massive.
Exactly. Yeah, and we had to split it up in 2 rooms too. Yeah.
Yeah, there was another room.
Yeah. So, as far as the location selection, yeah, we have really great venue relationships with pretty much every top tier venue across the US. So, making sure that these are not only easy to get to, but also very affordable and cheap. I mean, check the flights right now for that weekend. I know that
Yep.
people are a little bit anxious because it's like a holiday weekend, because I think Friday is a holiday.
Yeah.
But honestly, for us, that just means people have time off, and what better way when I have holidays and time off? Guess what I'm doing? I'm playing cards. I'm not really going to the beach. I mean, maybe it's just me, right? Because I'm just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
typical TCG grinder. But I want to go play some cards. I want to really go play in a big tournament, and I want to be able to like get up on the stage and just like really be on stream and show my loved ones and show
Yeah.
my family, so um yeah, a lot of these things, and obviously that's not our goal to put it on weekend on
Yeah.
holidays, but I don't want to say it's a make or break if it's not on like a Christmas or
I mean,
Thanksgiving. You'll never
I think
see
you
that.
prove, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this, like, yes, Fourth of July is an important holiday, but it's not Christmas. You know,
Exactly.
it's not like everyone is getting together on Fourth of July for their
Exactly.
family and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's
And
not
if you
necessarily
do Fourth of July stuff, it's usually at night to see the fireworks, right?
right,
And your
right.
tournament will be done way past then, right?
Yeah,
So, but yeah, these are all things that we want to make sure, like they're not on top of DLC dates, they're not on top of like your favorite premier tournament series date. They're not on top of holidays that are super significant. They're not on top of like the venues. Not like, oh, you got to fly into this airport and then you got an hour drive. Like I've seen those, and
yeah.
it's miserable. But those things
It's
happen,
not
right?
great.
Because
It's not great.
yeah, yeah, like you gotta get a rental when you land, and then
Yeah, yeah.
drive an
Sometimes
hour.
it happens, but
Yeah,
it's what can you do?
yeah. So but yeah, these are all things that are no brainers for us, and we're gonna obviously debut them on the tour just like we would for any premier tournament. So
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the future, but in general, what with these first few events, with the first one event, and if it goes off, like, I mean, honestly, how I think it's going to go off, what is the real future for this? Like, is this a short term plan or a long term plan? Where are we at with that?
before
Oh,
Steven goes, I don't do anything short term. So go
Love it,
ahead.
love it.
there you go. I mean, that's your answer. And even even this tournament is not just, this isn't new. This is the
Yeah,
culmination of multiple series across multiple different card games. We see this as the pinnacle of our experience gained up to this point.
hmm
And it will continue to be true for that. Every single tournament will be the pinnacle of the experience gained up to that point. And
yeah,
it will continue to be an evolution process. It will continue to be an open dialogue with the community. And how do you envision this circuit just growing in the future? Is very simple. Like championship, event at the end of a season, and at the end of that announcement awards ceremony, boom, here's the next season with here's the full lineup announced. And I
that
think
sounds
that's a
like a fairy tale.
well, this is Disney Lorcana, and magic can be real. So
I love it. If you can dream it, you can do it. That's it, right? That's the motto, right?
100%.
Speaking of past events, now I remember. It's funny enough. The first time I interviewed George, it might have been 2019. I think would have been the first time that we talked about another game. And here we are. You've been at it now for, is it 8, 9? Are we at 10 years yet? Are we that close?
Yeah, I mean, PBG in general has been around for like 12, 13 years, and
Yeah.
PBG event management followed like closely after that. I think we got our first client like 3 years in.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So 10 years of experience. What are what are some of like the biggest influence of feedback that you think has changed it? Like one of those, just like that light bulb feedback moments. Can you guys like remember of any of those that have just kind of made all of your tournaments better since?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it kind of comes from like us being players ourselves and participating in like a handful of like GPs and SCGs and Pokemon regionals and Yu-Gi-Oh YCSs and everything, right? Like we're connoisseurs of a lot of card games, and every card game's community is kind of different, but also the same a little bit.
Yeah.
So making sure that we participate ourselves, but also have that open dialogue like Steven is so great at doing with players, and making sure that after every event we're sending out feedback forms. Like we're
Yeah.
just listening.
Studio's haunted. But just to piggyback on what George was saying,
Oh,
it is an
I'm
open
back.
dialogue, and one of the biggest things that we've experienced that has been kind of a negative experience at other tournament series is that if you have a player complain, if you have an issue, you walk up to the customer service desk and you get, hey, email us, we'll resolve this later. When
Mhm.
you walk up to the voice of complaint at a PPG event, you're getting George, you're getting me, you're getting
Yeah,
Anna. Like you're
yeah.
literally getting
Shout out
the
to Anna, by
PPG
the way.
crew.
Shout out.
100%. She's been extremely generous with her time. Hearing customer complaints at every event, and I think that's truly like what makes PPG different. Just in general across all of these tournament series, you get honest people, you get genuine concern about your issues, and we really really want to take care of you.
That's very fair. How do you think that your past events have kind of shaped the TCG community? Like, do you like the impact that you guys have had? I think that whomever takes over DLCs, they have tough shoes to fill, in my humble opinion. So, what do you think about that impact that you've had on the TCG community here?
I don't need to wait for next season of DLCs to see the impact that PPG has already had on the tournament landscape. I look to the simply looking to Star Wars regionals. I can see elements of the DLC that's been implemented at those events.
Mhm.
We can see the way that Disney Lorcana players engage with with Ravensburger. It feels very much the way that we molded that into shape. And I'm not going to be surprised when the official judge policies come out and it looks very much like the documents that PPG created.
Right.
So we're very confident with how we've shaped the TCG community.
That's good. I love it. I mean, it's one of those that's tough, you know. So logistically, operationally, like what have you just been able to improve on? Like what got us to the point where when we walked into Continentals, it was a shock and awe moment. Like how many times now have we just gone through that and said, what, this is what I've grown to understand as a project manager, even, that this is the moment that I want. Like why is it that the moment that you want, and what do you think is so important about those moments?
So I mean, we've learned a lot, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like every event has been like perfect or exactly what we envisioned when we went and deployed the experience, but it's a matter of just being able to go back to the drawing board and just like listen in to the dust settling, right? Or just being in the moment, like Steven said, just being on boots on the ground and just
Mhm.
hearing the player base, right? A lot of it kind of comes from, like we had mentioned before, that leash that sometimes publishers are just setting on us, that is frustrating to a point, because we hear the feedback, we hear the players frustrations, and then ultimately we're either not able to respond because of certain things in our contract, but we acknowledge the same shortcomings, kind of,
Yeah.
that just ultimately sometimes you're set up to fail in many ways, and in certain scenarios, and you just have to eat it, right?
Mhm.
There was times in the point where like we just have to relinquish X, Y, and Z because uh, uh, dad said so, right? Like, there's a lot of that. A lot of that is political, and a lot of it I don't want to kind of like air out there, but it's something that happens behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and it's complex because you don't even hear about it online ever, because none our entire organization is not going to talk about like these
Mhm.
specific, like, isolated incidents that are just like we just can't make public, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it really just comes down to that, and that's ultimately what kind of allows this series to kind of live and breathe a different kind of like oxygen, because you have a lot
Yeah.
of this creative freedom, while maintaining all our official clients, right? Like the
Yeah.
clients that continue to see our vision and see this as a good for their game, because we're adding like additional supplemental events that kind of fill the lull when sometimes they have friction with
Yeah.
licensor or publisher or
Yeah.
approvals from the mouse.
Yeah.
That these things continue to be kind of like held on this lifeline, right? Almost
Yeah.
free of charge then, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that relationship that's awkward but still there, but also allows you to produce, official activations on behalf of those publishers because they know that you're fighting the fight for the greater good, right?
Yeah. So as a follow up, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine. When we talk about an incident like DLC Melbourne, and the cheating scandal around that, like how important would it be for you to guys to get in front of that? Like if that happened here and happened on camera, like what do you think is the importance of being able to kind of just be the voice of reason in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to be collaborative and
Mhm.
to make sure that we're opening the dialogue between publishers and coworkers, which are other tournament organizers, right? Like
Yeah.
we've had that open door dialogue a lot with Fanfinity, the
Mhm.
European TO, and a lot of that wasn't established with any other series that are being deployed in other countries, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's like intentional or just like a byproduct of how the relationships kind of opened ultimately with Ravensburger. It's everybody's fairly compartmentalized in that division, and
Mhm.
unless we kind of like proactively open that door for them, it's typically not opened any other way. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think it's important for sure because it's very easy to kind of dodge huge things like that when the door is opened and you get a lot of that conversation going. But when it's not, you can't fault those that were kind of put in that position and almost
Right.
kind of like set up to fail to
Right.
and then ultimately you look at the end result and you're like, well, yeah.
Yeah. I got you. I got you. Steve, give me some concept here. What makes this PPG Summit just can't miss? Like why do I have to be in that building that weekend?
Oh wow. Well, so many reasons. I mean, like I said, we're giving you the premier competitive circuit. I believe to date this is the highest cash pool offered
Yeah,
for a
without a doubt.
non-official event.
Right. To start it, the announcement itself saying this is what we're doing is greater than anything that we've seen in North America for sure.
Yeah, and we want to continue to be that strategic with our communication with players. Uh, Obviously, there's a weakness in the community right now about the dialogue between Ravensburger directly and the player base. So we don't want to step in and make the same mistakes. So with our tournament series, you are getting as good a communication as PPG is able to provide. And timeliness, we've been very forward with here are the dates that you're going to get more information. Here are the dates you're going to get the next event launch. And any surprises along the way will be announced a few days in advance just to give everybody the chance to start looking. So communication is definitely one really powerful reason to pay attention to the Pro Play Summit. The next is you're getting the one of the most experienced TOs in North America. George's experience is very longstanding. Over a decade working with multiple different player bases, multiple different communities. We care about player behavior. We care about how players are responding to the prizes that are being offered. And this tournament series is an evolution across the board. And truly, I know we've said it already, but truly those things matter tremendously. They are what makes or breaks a tournament series. And we're really excited for players to step into the room.
I love it. I love it. As a follow up question, you guys were very upfront about staffing for these events, whether it be to help on the event side of it, whether it be for judging. Is there already similar ways for people to look out for and kind of apply for those things?
Yes, we've probably already received over 50, 60 applications
Love
for
it.
Pro Play Summit. And I feel like that is a testament to how well we've treated the staff at the DLCs. These staff members were pivotal to how successful things were. They operated under limited judge programs. They
Mhm.
operated under new processes. They gave us their trust, and I feel like we treated them with respect along the way. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to work with those staff members again as many times as we possibly can.
Very fair. Talk about just the roadmap to PPG Summit, right? Like we just had the tickets go out, and the initial reaction here is that these numbers are, I mean, that one number there's already red. Like we're already in the red here, guys. So what is that? What does that also talk to the response of the community of saying you guys went out and you announced this tournament, and this quickly, we're selling 200, 300 tickets per day maybe already. What does that feel like for you guys? Is just like that natural reaction to that?
That's insane. Like we were super like excited to see the from the entire community. Really, like to have over 600 tickets sold already is actually insane.
Love
Like
it.
it really grows as a testament on how well of a job that the DLCs kind of like showed onto the player base, and how much they acknowledged that that was like a PBG created kind of like um uh thing. And honestly, like tournament organization has always been in our lifeblood, and our passion I feel like has seeped into that. And I feel like that was kind of like understood, and a lot of the community kind of felt with what position we were kind of like put in. And they were able to see that invisible leash at a lot of times. And I think they like being able to not only fill this lull, but also just know that they're really behind, you know, the brand, right? They're really behind our ability to take things seriously, take action, pivot, change, and adapt on, like the agileness is usually something that you can't see from like the much larger corporations. But as large as we are, being able to not only have that size and that agileness, I think the community really likes that, because at the end of the day, things change so often, right? Like the landscape changes, on a minor dial, only because of the sets sometimes, right? Like now the way that you play, you need to keep track of this and do all this. Like there's a lot of new processes that sometimes just inherently just they weren't there before, and now they're implemented because of this specific environment that you're kind of thrown into. And honestly, like our passion for doing it has always been there, right? Like
Yeah.
you'll see us as the first ones in and last ones out. There's not a time in the show that you can't find George. There's not a time in the show that you can't find Steven. There's not
No,
a
no,
time in
that's
the
not
show that you
true.
can't
We
find Eric.
can't we can't find you because you're everywhere.
Oh yeah, exactly. You'll see me running, from one side of the 100,000 square foot hall to the other, right? Like, I'm not. You won't catch me sitting, right?
No,
And
no, yeah, no, that is an actual fact. I remember in Atlanta, you had like the center hub, and it was very similar to the NACC as well. But
yeah,
I remember specifically in Atlanta, and I would like see you, but by the time I got there, you were already like around the other side, and I'm just like, I just want to like say like goodbye to George real quick.
We got to get Dan one of those radios so he can talk to us.
Yeah,
right,
literally, I
right.
could just I got a voice in.
But if I could piggyback on what George said, when the ticket sales went up and it was a resounding success for us, excitement is an understatement, but it's really gratitude for the entire community. And then the very next thought that we have 2 minutes later is the community is treating us so well right now. We have to do more for them.
Yeah,
We have to look to what can we give back to the community that's going to make this a conversation back and forth. And so we're really excited to announce what we're going to be doing on Monday.
I love it. So Monday we have something, Wednesday we have another thing. Leading up to it, I'm sure there might be. The good news is that a lot of the information will flow through Forbidden Mountain, because we're, obviously we helped announce it. We're going to be helping you guys follow through with announce all these other things, which is wonderful. But I have to get to a question that it has to. We gotta discuss a little bit here. The Disney Lorcana challenges where it created a format known as the 2-game format. Before we go further, how do you guys feel about the 2-game format after hosting 7 events with it?
Yeah, I mean, personally, it was something that we gave a little bit of pushback at the beginning, but ultimately, it's clients' rules, your game, your rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that we expect to inherit at the summit.
Okay.
We're sticking to a best of 3,
Okay.
and whether the DLCs are going to incorporate that best of 3 structure going forward, we don't know yet. But there has been a resounding amount of pushback on the format, but it also has its strengths of being something that's new and unique, and fun for some. And it's hard to kind of like separate that feedback from those that don't know any better and those that know a little bit better.
Sure.
So but yeah, it's a lot of the unofficial top events have typically adapted the best of 3 anyways. So we felt like that would be best for the players, especially in a future that no one knows much about, right?
Sure.
What's the format of the DLCs? How frequent are they? How big are they? When are they happening? None of this is known, and there's no plans for that to be public knowledge anytime soon, unfortunately.
Right. Right. Very, very fair. Very, very fair. Well, gentlemen, this was a wonderful photo I found in the PPG Entertainment of just you guys. This is just like live, footage of you're in the tank trying to figure out probably something here. I'm sure you have a million conversations a day and you don't remember the exact thing here, but it is just the testament of you guys are up. You're trying to do everything imaginable to make these events memorable. And I think that that's a true testament to what you guys have accomplished. And I really said this, I said every event that I attended every one of them, right? I was there at all 6 DLCs. I was there at NACC, and I genuinely believe every one of them got better. One of my mottos in life is 1% better every day, every opportunity, right? And
For
it
sure.
is one of those that you guys did it. The only I think like the only up and down moment was things that you probably couldn't control was all right. So when we first announced DLCs, it was for 512 players. I mean, you guys, I was there with you. I was like live texting George during it, and like we're talking 45 seconds gone. Like 512 seconds gone in 45 seconds. We're like, this is bad. Now, luckily for me, I was one of those 512 people that had a ticket for the first one. I was lucky. A lot of people were not. Okay, a lot of people were not, and almost instantly, and we heard from Albert that there was kind of like a plan within the plan already, but that moment of going, hey, it's sold out. What do we do? Like how do we make it better? You guys figured it out. The only times it was downs were Chicago and Toronto, where you weren't able to expand to the 2,000 player cap that you were for other tournaments. So if there is a world, we saw there was only 42 tickets left. 4th of July is still 2 months away. It's only May 2nd as of recording here. Is there some leniency there? Like, can we say like, oh, hey, if that goes out, there's going to be more. Like, can we have a little bit of comfort for players?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was something that we built out in the tour inherently to make sure that we had those like extra ceiling tiles up front to make sure that if we needed to increase that ceiling, decrease that ceiling, it was there. Obviously, like we wanted to plan for the worst, but here we are planning for the best, right? Where that ceiling is kind of as high as we want it to be, and if we need to go down or just higher it, that opportunity is there, right? And that opportunity is going to be there for most of the venues. Obviously, there's always going to be some type of bandwidth restriction, like you saw with Chicago and Toronto last year. We were just limited to, we could only double the size. We weren't able to quadruple it, which was a huge ask in the first place, but we were able to make it happen for, like you said, 4 out of the 6 tour
4 or
stops.
6, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, when we build out our venues, we're going to do our best to do that. But yeah, there's always going to be that superseding, like, what if scenario or asterisk onto like the point that we can't. But yeah, when we choose our venues, we try to make sure that option is there first. But yeah.
Very, very fair. Ironically, before we get out of here, I wanted to like just touch on this is the live stream footage of PPG Denver, which was the
Nice.
first, the first streamed Disney Lorcana tournament, and it's also the first time that I met Steve and I was able to become acquainted with him. And it is, really comical to me of how far we have come in that time frame. The idea that we were just broadcasting across the like the nation and still able to deliver a product. We're talking about from day one. This is day one stuff here that even from that moment to Miami is kind of crazy, but like that moment to NACC it truly is kind of like magical in a way. Like the idea that you talk about all of the growth that happened in a short period of time just for Disney Lorcana, and not even to mention what you guys did for your other products. Like you just had Level Up that was beautiful. It was gorgeous. Like I saw the pictures of it. So it really is like a very nice thing to say. We started this adventure together and here we are 2 years later and it's still going. And the journey is not anywhere close to finish for Disney Lorcana. So I'm very grateful for being included then and definitely grateful for being included now. It means a lot to me.
Thanks again for your involvement and support. Really love everyone, back home, even on top of that, like everybody offline, like there's been so much community feedback and response and just support. on top of all the staff members in the behind the scene that have been able to put all this on. Anna has been a key role, like in the shadows, kind of
For sure.
working at, along with all her administrative assistants to make sure that everything is kind of like tied up as best as possible, and that we're able to provide, the ultimate true information and refine those pieces of information that maybe are missing certain pieces. So ultimately, I think that this is going to be a very exciting and successful tour, and it's already showing to do so. And it's very, very early stages without a lot of the really exciting information still really down the pipeline. And we want to make sure that this is something that people can expect, at multiple different destinations, in a series type of way that people have time to plan for. So that's always been our motto, to make sure that the planning is there, the communication's there, and the fun is there.
Love it. Steve, just in case anyone else still wants to get involved, and how do we go about doing that for them?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to put a blanket statement out there, and it's going to be really bold. Okay, if I'm considering PPG Texas a failure, if there's not if there's not at least one moment where players don't just drop their jaw and pull out their phone and take a picture, so just putting that out there. Get excited for Texas.
Love
But
it.
yeah, I
Love it.
really want to hear from the community. All of your feedback means so much to me. You can find me on Facebook. You can email one of the many email addresses that we speak to the community at, info@ppgeventmanagement.com. Is a great way to reach out to us. Most of those with the community get forwarded over to me. I would love to have a conversation, whether it's you want to staff this event, you want to host a satellite tournament around the event, you just have general thoughts on what pricing would be just incredible for you, or you have format suggestions. We want to hear it all, every single drop of it. So please reach out.
Very, very. Any last words, gentlemen, before we send everyone home?
Yeah, one last thing, I wanted to plug the ways that you can be involved with Pro Play Tour Texas. We have the staff applications on ppgeventmanagement.com, so you can go there and apply to staff for the summit and any other existing or future summit activations. There's also the vendor form. So if you know a store, or you have a booth, or you have a store that you want to activate at one of these summits, you can go ahead and fill out that application. Like I said, it's going to be very strict because we want to make sure that we control the amount of games and vendors for those games to make sure that we don't oversaturate. But the application is there. And then ultimately the store application to host these, free tournaments, which you can add to. For example, I know a lot of these unofficial tournaments are happening at local game stores across the nation. So if you want to add in a cash prize, or if you want to add in your own prizing to make these, bigger than what they normally are intended to be, then not only will you get that free swag from us and those buys and or flights to these events, but you'll be able to actually put in your additional prize support to make these even bigger. So and I'm sure Dan would love to cover the results of those events. So
100%.
be involved. There's no excuse not to, whether you're a vendor, a player, or a store. You have a spot here with the Pro Play Summit.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for giving me your time this morning and delivering all this information to the community. I think it's important right now. We don't know what's happening for Disney Lorcana challenges in the future. We literally do not know. So having some type of like circuit out there that's going to be traveling, hitting different states and just destination events, I think is really it's going to be sought after. And I think that Texas already says that. When you look at the tickets already sold, at George said over 600 tickets for this event in just a few days. We're talking about less than a week. We launched on Sunday afternoon. So I think it's very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to being there and just just seeing it. I want to see Steve. All right, I want to see that moment. I want to walk.
I want you to
pull out
see
my
it.
phone.
I want you to see it so bad.
So, but truly, thank you guys. And of course, if you're watching after, leave in the comments. Let us know anything, any information. This is another one-way ticket to Steve. I can send him. He'll be following the comments. If there's anything that you want to know, hopefully he'll be able to answer, and we can kind of utilize that, moving forward. But truly, thank you guys so much for being here today and for including the Forbidden Mountain in all of this. I really do appreciate it. All right. And with that, we will talk to you guys later, and we'll see you in the next video.